I think we've passed kneeling. I think it's time to go into actionable items. I think everyone knows what the issue is, and we're done with that. Everyone knows what you know what the issue is? You know why we were kneeling? Okay, do you know the issue? Yeah, do you know the issue? Yes? We all know the issue now. Okay, next. Where are we moving on next? And I'm not, again, so to be clear for the room, I'm not minimizing that part of it because that has to happen. That's a necessary part of the process. But now we all know what's going on. What are we going to do? How are we going to stop? Because the kneeling was not about a job. It was about injustice. Let me bring attention to injustice. Everyone's saying, how are you going forward? And Cap doesn't have a job. This wasn't about him having a job, right? That became part of it. That became part of the discussion. He was kneeling to bring attention to injustice. We know what it is. Now, how do we address that injustice?
Why can't we be friends, GIGI Fontaine? We go at it every day right here on 1210 The Man Radio. Jeff Fox and GIGI Fontaine in for the Big O in prime time, doing big things on your Thursday afternoon right here on 1210 The Man. Let's go right back to our guest line and our dear brother from ESPN, the great Freddie Coleman, the master of nighttime radio. Nobody does it better than my man, Freddie. Freddie, what's going on, man?
I want to know the answer to that question. Why can't y'all guys be friends? Come on, let a brother know. Seriously.
Because my co-host is a know-it-all, and I
am not a know-it-all,
and we bump heads.
He's just mad that I'm always right.
You know, you two sound like my dad. I may not be always right, but I'm never wrong. You sound exactly like my dad.
Darn right.
Oh, man. Freddie, good having you on the show once again, man. Thank you for joining us. Your thoughts, sir, on some of the results of the last couple of hours here, the last 24 to 48 hours, the announcing of the Rock Nation NFL alliance, so to speak. We're taking various opinions here on this, but I think one thing we share in common is we both like it, and we look at Jay-Z quite favorably in terms of how this deal was done. Do you share that same sentiment?
Yeah, here's why. Because I'm still trying to figure out why people believe that this partnership that Jay-Z and the NFL has, that's supposed to lead to Colin Kaepernick being back in the National Football League. Those two things aren't connected. Jay-Z is a businessman, and he is not working for the NFL. He is working with the NFL when it comes as a partnership to broaden his brand and broaden the brand of the National Football League. That doesn't mean that even though he criticized the NFL for what they've done to Colin Kaepernick, and let's be honest, they did blackball Colin Kaepernick, that doesn't mean that he has to put his life aside for Colin Kaepernick and his cause. So I'm still trying to figure out how people are trying to connect those dots from Jay-Z being a businessman, always being about that business, always being about that life, and criticizing him because many people believe that, well, why is he not doing the same thing with Colin Kaepernick? There's only so much that a Jay-Z and anybody else can do because the NFL has already made up their mind to move on from Colin Kaepernick, and Colin Kaepernick's not playing in the National Football League. That's not a Jay-Z issue, and you should not make it an issue with Jay-Z because he's doing what he's going to do best for his business, and right now what's best for him is having a partnership with the National Football League.
I look at this situation, though, Freddie, and I still think that somehow in the back of his mind that Jay-Z has a plan here, and Colin Kaepernick, while he hasn't played in 3 years, I think is still fully capable of being a at least productive backup in the National Football League. You know, especially based on what I've seen. So I think he can still play. And I think at some point, maybe Jay-Z has a plan.
He can be a starter.
You think he can be a starter? I'm saying backup at worst when I say that. But maybe Jay-Z has some sort of a plan to help Colin still, because I was looking at it as a possible win for Kaepernick as well.
Well, I disagree with you about thinking that Colin Kaepernick can be a backup in the NFL. I know he can be a backup in the NFL, and I know in the right situation. he could be a starting quarterback in the National Football League, even though it's been 3 years since he's been on an NFL field. But 3 years, it's a generation, especially the NFL keeps expanding and keeps developing new offenses and ways to get the football down the field. If you're not around NFL people having that kind of reflex action, know what to do, that Colin Kaepernick is not a part of right now, there's only so much you can do. And I think the more time passes, it's going to be very hard for him to get back on an NFL team. And I also firmly believe that all those owners have set their mind to say, even if it's the right situation, we're not going to bring this guy in because we're still not going to alienate the people that make us a lot of money. And those are the fans and sponsors when it comes to the National Football League. And I'm with you. I don't discount anything in terms of a plan when it comes to Jay-Z. But Jay-Z better realize this. You're just one dude that does not own the National Football League team. Those 32 guys and the commissioner, Roger Goodell, who works for them, that is a very strong bond that they have because they know how to make each other money. And Colin Kaepernick, even 3 years later, is still not good for their business when it comes to the National Football League.
I agree. I think to a certain degree, at some point, Colin will be employed. I don't know. Personally, I don't think he'll ever play again. But when Jeff says, he's going to benefit, I do think he's probably going to work with him on certain things, maybe.
Yeah.
What I didn't like was just a couple words, I think. Like the word consultation. Like Jay-Z would literally sit there and have a consultation.
Right.
Like, no. And then when Jeff earlier was saying that Jay-Z is infiltrating, I'm like, he's not infiltrating. He's walking through the front door. He verbally said, this is not something he hid. He verbally said, I don't need you. You need me.
Yes, he said it on that song Apes with Beyonce. Yeah, he said that.
He said it. He put on the Colin Kaepernick shirt. We know we all support Kaepernick. I do. I have on my Nike now. Mm-hmm. But I 100% agree with what Jay-Z's doing. I have no qualms with it. Anybody who's as revolutionary as Jay-Z is obviously going to have a plan to make things better. I literally have nothing negative.
Yeah, Jay-Z doesn't infiltrate anymore. We're not talking about him trying to take over the Carter Apartments in New Jack City and having that kind of thing going on. That's infiltration. What was going on back then. That was business being never personal. That was an infiltration. What Nino Brown and his crew did in that movie. Jay-Z is way past the point that if he has an idea about something, people know it is good to be in business with him because he has shown time and time again that when he puts his hands on something or he has his eyes trained on something, that's going to be a moneymaker and not just for him. And everybody knows that. The National Football League has been really, really good in the economic scale of not losing ground when it comes to making money. Yeah, the NBA is a hot property. They're still miles behind the National Football League. Major League Baseball is a multi-billion-dollar corporation. They're still miles behind the National Football League. College football is a huge, huge business, and they're still miles behind the National Football League when it comes to making money, not only domestically, but also internationally. If you're Jay-Z, you've been keeping your eye on the National Football League. You're not a fool to say, hey, if you want to be in business with me, you got to put that guy on the NFL roster. He's not about to do that. It's about, okay, I'm going to help you, but you're going to wind up helping me a lot more than the other way around because that's what he's always done. And it got started way back when before he became the Jay-Z that we know. And it's even more so now when it comes to his legacy, being no longer just a hip-hop guy, but also a person that's an innovator and also a guy that sets the trend instead of following trends, which is he's been able to do that more and more each and every year when he stays out of the hip-hop game.
Talking with Freddie Coleman from ESPN right here on the Jeff Fox Show with Gigi Fontaine in for the Big O on 1210 The Man. Freddie, is this it's obviously a calculated move by Roger Goodell and the NFL because you think about it, a year ago in Atlanta, lots of people declining to perform because of the mistreatment of Kaepernick from the league itself, the blackballing. The NFL still lacked credibility with a lot of black folks and just people in general, those that support Kaepernick among fans. So they had to go and get somebody, and I think they got the perfect guy, someone that still has street credibility, someone that still has the business acumen that Jay-Z has to give them exactly what they needed to try to rectify a situation that's been pretty much troublesome for them. And as a billionaire and someone who's still respected, so to speak, I think Jay-Z was the perfect choice. So kudos to Roger Goodell?
Well, I'm going to throw this question at you based on what you just said. When you talk about lacking credibility with people of color, how many of those people were still watching the National Football League or watched the Super Bowl?
That's one that is hard to measure because people say they weren't going to watch the games. And I can tell you, my co-host has stuck to her guns. She has not watched any games since Cap protested and he has been blackballed. On the other hand, will admit I joined the protest too, but I gave in.
Yeah, because you know why? A lot of people, even plenty of people, did not like when Kaepernick protests and saying, I'm not going to watch the NFL again. But then ratings were through the roof last year. You can't tell me the NFL found new fans to replace all those old fans. I'm not buying that for 1 second.
Right.
There are plenty of people that stuck to their guns, and I give them credit for wanting to do that, but if that's what you want to do. But the NFL also knows that they are a singular event each and every week. And as much as people, not talking about GIGI here, but there are plenty of people like her that say, I'm never watching the NFL again because of Kaepernick and because of this and because of that. And yet when football got back to being football, there were plenty of those people watching the Saints versus the Rams in the NFC Championship game, or watching the Patriots versus the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game, or watching Sunday Night Football on NBC or Monday Night Football on ESPN. People will say, not you, GIGI, but people will say what they think people want to hear to further an agenda. Not too many people are going to stick to their guns because it's easy not to find out who's doing this and who's not doing what. So when GIGI says something like that, or Jamel Hill says something like that, yeah, it's going to get instant credibility because people are going to believe what they have to say. But there are plenty of knotheads out there that'll just spout off on the mouth because they're following or have a herd mentality that, oh, if this is popular here, well, that's where I'm going to go. If this is the bandwagon here, well, that's where I want to go. The minute they jump off that bandwagon, they don't want anybody to know that they've done that. So when I hear stuff like that, my skeptic nerve gets really, really high because I'm like, you're the same person that probably said you wouldn't go to McDonald's anymore and they changed the fries, but yeah, you went right back there the next day because you were hungry.
Right.
Those kind of people, they don't set trends. They're always going to follow what everybody else is doing, and the NFL knows that. People still follow the NFL. They still watch the NFL. They still follow the NFL on social media. So one can be high and mighty about that. But more often than not, that person will wind up watching the NFL and hoping that nobody catches them in that lie that they put out there in the first place. But I'm not talking about GIGI. I'm talking about other people.
The strength is in the branding. The NFL really is something that's only here. So I get that. And in the day, its biggest day is the day that it just becomes a ritual. It threw off my Sunday. It threw off my Sunday. It makes, my job harder because now I got to watch all these highlights and try to catch up because I still got to know what's going on even if I'm not watching.
Right.
So I get it why people are still watching, but the strength is in branding. Look at what happened with Papa John's. They're no longer a sponsor for their tomfoolery.
Right.
It's Pizza Hut now.
Well, the pizza was terrible anyway, so it's only a matter of time before we caught up to that when it comes to that from that standpoint. But when you say something like that, you can't flip-flop. If you're going to be on one stance, especially if you're the owner of a multi-billion-dollar company, male, female, black, white, Asian, Hispanic, whatever, the minute that you call out something else that's a bigger brand than yours and you have less credibility, that's not going to end well for you. I go back to when you talk about, and you made a great point, Gigi, about brand, and the NFL knows what their brand is. People do not want anything to get in their way of their Sundays. And the biggest complaint people had about the anthem protest was that just give us football. Leave that stuff out of the way when it comes to our football. And the minute that the networks stopped focusing in on that, what happened? People went back to football, whether it was Colin Kaepernick or any other player out there protesting. The minute that they stopped focusing on that and stopped showing players kneeling before the national anthem, it was amazing how that quickly went away because fans told them, stop it with this nonsense. Just give us football. Let that be something else outside of the National Football League. Fight that on your own time, but don't inflict that on our time when it comes to the NFL. The minute the NFL realized that, hey, why are we taking football away from people that are looking forward to this each and every Sunday, each and every Sunday night, each and every Monday night? We're hurting our brand by being stupid and by being ignorant. The minute that they got away from that and just focused on football, it was amazing how people said, well, we didn't ask for all of this, but you had no business bringing this to the table. And you don't allow one person representing the Oval Office to bring 32 billionaires to their knees. That's what one guy essentially did. The minute that they discovered that they had a backbone and could rally against that, it's amazing how that stuff disappeared from the Oval Office and from other people trying to push that agenda against the NFL.
Freddie Coleman, ESPN, on with Jeff Fox and Gigi Fontaine, 1210 The Man. Freddie, not everybody was excited, though, or embracing Jay-Z and the Rock Nation and the NFL coming together, including Eric Reed, who was one of the very people who protested with Colin Kaepernick and was blackballed by the league itself.
And accepted payment.
Despite the fact that he accepted payment, but they still felt like the league itself kind of changed the narrative. And from all of this, not that we need a history lesson on what started the protest, but at least Jay-Z, answering the tough questions said, now we're at the table. We did the protest. We did the kneeling thing already. Now it's what do we do next? What do you tell those people?
I'll answer that question with this question. What do you want? Seriously, because let's say if Jay-Z decided to continue on down this line and miss a golden opportunity to brand Rock Nation part of the NFL, some other people to say, like, dude, are you crazy? You're going to pass up an opportunity to be next to the biggest league, one of the biggest leagues in the world, for something that people have moved on from? That doesn't make any sense. So I always want to know, what do people want? Because it seems that when people get it, they're still not satisfied. And I'm not talking about that with Eric Reed, because Eric Reed has been steadfast in everything that he has said, kneeling next to Colin Kaepernick, railing against always being drug tested by the NFL, these random drug tests, because he knows there are plenty of people that don't want him in the NFL, but he has enough skin in the game and enough stroke that he still can play well at safety and is a respected voice in the National Football League that people are going to pay attention to, even outside the National Football League. So there's anything they can do about that from that standpoint. But if you get what you want, let's say Jay-Z decides tomorrow, you know what, I'm going to make it a personal plea, a personal cause to try to get Colin Kaepernick back in the National Football League. And the NFL says, well, we can't be partners anymore based on that because we don't agree with it. People are going to say, dude, let Colin Kaepernick fight his own fight. You already were doing enough to try to make it work for you. So that's my answer to that question. What do you want? What do you want Jay-Z and other people to do? Because if you're unwilling to step up the cause with Colin Kaepernick, why are you expecting somebody else to do it? Why do you want somebody else to fight a battle for you that you're unwilling to fight yourself? So that's why I say I don't know what you want, but please let me know, and then we can try to all figure this out together to see exactly what page we need to be on, whether we agree with it or disagree with it. It seems I'm getting a lot of vague answers, but nothing of substance, and they're trying to put Jay-Z in the middle of this because after what he said about supporting Kaepernick back then, and now he's in business with a league that still doesn't want Colin Kaepernick as a part of the league right now.
It's interesting to see how this plays out from here on in. I mean, it really is. We're going to take, courtside seats or sideline seats and watch and see what happens. There are a lot of people that says that they want to wait and see where this goes. Remember, Gigi?
Yeah.
You want to wait and see how it goes and how this all
Jay-Z
turns
ain't no
out.
sellout.
Yeah.
So I'm not worried. I'm excited to see what happens.
All right. You can follow him on Twitter, folks, at Coleman ESPN. Freddie Coleman right there. And, of course, you just did a couple of shows with my homie, Jonathan Hood. I was checking you guys out, man. Good stuff.
Yeah, Jay Hood is always fun to work with, and with Ian Fitzsimmons being on vacation, it's always a good time hanging out with him because you just never know what he's going to say. But when he says something, you say, okay, do I follow that path and we die together, or do I go my own separate path and leave him to his own devices? But it's always cool working with Jonathan. He's a quality broadcaster, but more importantly, he's a better person than that. So it's always a benefit for me and the show when we get a chance to work together. And that'll be happening a couple of times soon in the next couple of weeks.
No doubt. Our producer this afternoon, Eric, also a huge fan of Freddie and Fitzsimmons, wanted us to point that out to you as well. And you get love from the studio audience. So, Freddie Coleman, ESPN, thank you so much, Freddie, especially with the short notice, man. We'll do it again.
My pleasure, Jeff and Gigi. And you still haven't answered my question. Why can't you guys be friends? I'm still waiting on that answer.
She just got to let me be the man. Let me be in charge.
No,
well,
I mean,
why can't she be the woman to be in your man and have that coexist peacefully?
Even Freddie agreed on my infiltration argument. Like I'm literally always right. I'm literally undefeated.
Have we not seen the movie Love and Basketball when Omar Epps told Sanaa Lathan still the man, and she goes, no, still the woman, and they were able to make that work? Why can't you two guys do the same thing?
I'm going to try. I'll try. I waved away.
No, you're not. You're lying, Jeff. No, you're not.
Hey, man. We appreciate you, Freddie, man. Yeah,
anytime, guys, and anything for you guys. Always a pleasure.
Yes, sir. Freddie Coleman, of course, from Freddie and Fitzsimmons ESPN Radio is where he comes from, and you check him out. Follow him on Twitter at Coleman ESPN. Are we up against it? I'm sure we are.
We're
back
actually
on the other
past
side.
it, bro. Like, it's in the back there somewhere.
We shattered the
But
clock.
to do Freddie, man, it was
Yeah.
like, yeah, we'll make it work.
No doubt. Back more of the Big O Show right here on 1210 The Man.